Look like Caitlin Clark's civil rights has sparked a WNBA and NBA probe by the Trump administration.
The WNBA Commissioner is feeling the heat after new reports reveal the Caitlin Clark civil rights saga has exploded into a full-blown government probe. Yeah, it just went federal. And here's the wild part. This isn't just about basketball anymore. It's about politics, power, and the invisible hands steering the league's future. So what do you think? Is this investigation truly about justice for Caitlin Clark, or just politics dressed up as fairness? Drop your thoughts below. All right, buckle up, because this story's got more layers than an onion on steroids. We've got Caitlin Clark, we've got the WNBA brass, and now we've got the Trump administration and the Department of Justice stepping in. That's right. This thing has blasted way beyond sports.
And his administration was coming. I've been preaching on it. I didn't think it was going to hit the NBA first. I thought it was coming to the W first, simply because of Caitlin Clark, her civil rights being violated, and these damn...
Reports say a civil rights review has been launched over how Caitlin Clark was treated all season long, from the ref calls to the league's silence to the fan chaos, to what's now being called a hostile environment. And guess what? The commissioner's right in the crossfire. If you've been riding with this channel, you already know we've tracked every twist of the Caitlin Clark saga. First, they brushed off the rough play. Then they ignored fans begging for protection. Then they acted like nothing was wrong when videos of Clark taking hard fouls went viral week after week. And now, here we are months later with the Justice Department stepping in. Because when a league fails to protect its brightest star and creates what looks like a biased environment, someone in Washington is bound to notice. The Wall Street Journal called it early, saying, if the league won't protect its superstars from a hostile environment, the government should. That quote aged like fine wine, because that's exactly what's unfolding now. But here's where things really take a turn. Sources say this civil rights angle is what caught the Trump administration's eye. They were already digging into sports gambling issues in the NBA, and then bam, someone mentions the Caitlin Clark situation and how unequal treatment could fall under a civil rights review. You couldn't script this stuff if you tried.
That has been vocal, has been an advocate about this probe happening. Now, I am here to tell...
Stephen A. Smith even said back in August that Trump's team had their eyes on the WNBA. And he wasn't just throwing out a hot take. He said straight up that a senator was already having quiet talks about it behind the scenes. Fast forward to now, and boom, it's all playing out on national TV.
Politics. How many times, for one incident after another, have I said, Trump is coming? He's coming. I'm going to say it on national television.
You know what kind of world I've been living in when it comes to politics? How many times have I said it? Over and over. Every time something big goes down. I've told you before, Trump is coming. And I'll say it again, right here on national television.
Talk about a story that's very, very important. And albeit indirectly, it involves Caitlin Clark, the Department of Justice, and quite possibly the President of the United States himself. Somebody got to say it, so I'm going to say it. But one thing I will not do is take credit for this. I am looking at the Wall Street Journal. The author of the article is a guy by the name of Sean Mc...
So, let's break down why the commissioner's catching so much heat. Plain and simple, it's a failure of leadership. While Caitlin Clark was getting knocked around on the court, what was the league doing? Posting women empowerment tweets and acting like everything was perfectly fine. But fans weren't fooled. Even neutral voices started saying it. The league looked anti-Clark. She wasn't just the biggest attraction in WNBA history. Somehow, she'd also become its biggest target. The refs swallowed their whistles, players took shots at her in interviews, and through it all, the league stayed completely silent.
Protecting its transformative star, the league's leadership ignores the relentless targeting of Ms. Clark, treating its greatest asset as if she were a PR headache. That approach could turn into a legal liability for the WNBA.
I had to talk about a story that's not just big, it's very important. And even though it connects in a roundabout way, it ties together Caitlin Clark, the Department of Justice, and maybe, just maybe, the President of the United States himself. Somebody's got to say it, so I'm going to be the one. But let me be clear, I'm not taking credit for breaking this. I'm just looking at the facts. This comes straight from the Wall Street Journal, written by a journalist named Sham Lan. That's where the civil rights angle kicks in. Because under federal law, if a league shows bias or fails to enforce its own rules fairly, especially when race and public perception get tangled in the mix, that's a serious issue. And now, it officially is one. The Trump administration's involvement just adds another layer of chaos. They see Caitlin Clark as America's sweetheart, a symbol of grit, talent, and merit. So if they think she's being treated unfairly, they're going to make noise about it. Stephen A. warned everyone, if that base grabs hold of this story, the WNBA's in for a storm. Now, every sports show from ESPN to Fox is weighing in. Some call it accountability. Others say it's political meddling. But no matter how you spin it, it's bad news for the commissioner, because you can't run a league and look lost at the same time. This wasn't hard to prevent. All they had to do was keep the ref calls consistent and make sure their own players weren't taking cheap shots on social media. But no, they treated Clark's fame like a threat instead of the gift it was. And now, they've got the feds digging around, asking why league officials ignored complaints. That's never a good look. Now the headlines are everywhere, and the WNBA commissioner is getting slammed from all sides. ESPN, Fox, The Blaze, even political podcasts are weighing in. Some are calling it a reckoning, others just call it karma. Either way, it's ugly. You've got senators asking questions, reporters combing through old referee logs, and social media detectives digging up every clip where Caitlin Clark got elbowed, shoved, or smacked with no whistle. There's even a highlight reel on X, formerly Twitter, called The Hits That Changed the League. Millions of views. And the commissioner? She's over here talking about fostering equality and supporting diversity. Great speech, just terrible timing. People don't want buzzwords. They want answers. Fans are absolutely roasting her. One post read, asterisk, how do you run a league that lets its biggest star get bullied on live TV? Asterisk, another said, asterisk, if this happened to LeBron or Curry, heads would have rolled by now. Asterisk, hard to argue with that one. Even former players are speaking up, some defending the league, saying, it's just part of the game, while others are straight up admitting what everyone's been thinking. The refs treated her differently. And when enough insiders start echoing the same thing, that's when it stops being a debate and becomes a full-blown problem. Because now, both the DOJ and the Trump administration are paying attention. And when those two names show up in the same sentence as your league, you know things just got serious. Here's the part nobody wants to say out loud. This never had to happen. The WNBA could have handled it quietly months ago. A few suspensions here, a little referee accountability there. A clear statement that every player deserves the same protection. Easy fix. But instead, they brushed it off as media noise. Now, they've got lawyers calling it a civil rights probe, and reporters asking if the WNBA violated its own anti-discrimination code. That's what arrogance gets you. The league thought Caitlin Clark's popularity would fade. Just another internet moment. They didn't realize she was the moment. They underestimated how deeply the public connected with her. And worse, they treated her rise like a threat instead of the opportunity it was. And now, here we are. The commissioner's office is now reportedly facing an internal review over how it handled Caitlin Clark's complaints about unfair officiating. The Wall Street Journal's article about the so-called hostile environment, yeah, that's now being used as evidence. Emails and memos are being pulled. And according to one insider, there's full-on panic behind the scenes. Even Stephen A. Smith, who's been warning the league for months, said this morning that this is just the tip of the iceberg. He pointed out that the Trump administration has been keeping tabs on the WNBA ever since Caitlin Clark turned into a political talking point. And honestly, he's probably right, because let's not kid ourselves, politics and sports always mix. The moment the White House sees public outrage, they move fast. Trump's team knows Clark's popularity runs deep. They know she represents a massive fan base that feels unheard. You think they're going to let that moment pass? Not a chance. Now, let's talk about how all this looks for the WNBA, and it's not good. A league that constantly preaches fairness, empowerment, and equality is now being accused of doing the exact opposite. Ignoring bias, letting refs pick favorites, and failing to protect the one player who skyrocketed their ratings by 400%. The commissioner's statement so far? Just a short, 2-paragraph press release saying they welcome all oversight and support transparency. Translation: they're sweating bullets. Because here's what's coming next: subpoenas, testimonies, referees grilled over their calls, coaches questioned about league directives. It's about to get messy. And when the truth finally surfaces, if even a shred of these rumors turns out to be true, it's going to shatter the progressive image the WNBA has been pushing for years. And you know who comes out on top in all this? Caitlin Clark. Because when the dust settles, she's going to stand as the face of justice, the player who stood up against bias. Every brand will want her name. Every company will want her face in their ads. Meanwhile, the commissioner will be lucky to keep her seat. Now, let's dig into the civil rights side of this. People hear that phrase and think it's just some legal buzzword, but not here. In this case, it's real. If a player's being treated unfairly because of bias, whether racial, gender-based, or driven by fan pressure, that's enough to trigger a civil rights review. The government's job isn't to decide who wins games. It's to make sure the rules are applied fairly. And when millions of people can clearly see Caitlin Clark getting slammed on plays with no whistle, that's enough to raise alarms. You can't preach equality while ignoring bias that obvious. It's hypocrisy on full display. The funny part? The same folks who called fans overdramatic a few months ago are now tripping over themselves to say, asterisk, we support the investigation. Asterisk, that's how fast the tune changes once Washington steps in. And let's be honest, this is about to get even louder. The Trump administration stepping into a women's sports controversy? That's headline gold for weeks. Every news show, every podcast, every sports panel will be talking about the WNBA and Caitlin Clark. Ironically, it might be the biggest spotlight the league's ever had, just for all the wrong reasons. Now, let's get a little sarcastic, because this part's pure comedy. The same WNBA that acted like it didn't need Clark's star power is suddenly begging her to stay positive while the league's getting grilled by federal lawyers. Oh, now she's your superstar? Now she's valued? Please, where was that energy when refs swallowed their whistles every time she got decked? Where was it when players were throwing shade about her media privilege instead of focusing on the game? Now, the league's acting like her teammate. Too late, the damage is done. And here's the cherry on top. Sponsors are watching. Nike, Gatorade, State Farm. All those brands that poured millions into the WNBA, they don't want civil rights investigation anywhere near their logo. So yeah, this is bad for everyone, except Caitlin Clark. And if Trump himself decides to weigh in, which Stephen A. says is very possible, buckle up, because that'll turn this from a sports controversy into a political firestorm overnight. It'll be Caitlin Clark versus the system, And we all know which side the public's taking. Meanwhile, the players who mocked her or downplayed her impact, now they're dead silent. Suddenly, everyone's preaching unity and fair treatment. You can practically smell the PR panic from miles away. And don't think the NBA isn't watching, because if this investigation leaks into their ongoing gambling probe, you're about to see executives dropping faster than you can say federal oversight. Like Stephen A. said, this isn't coincidence, it's a warning. The FBI doesn't call press conferences unless something serious is brewing. And the fact that they did, yeah, that means more is on the way. So sure, the commissioner can spin it however she wants, but the court of public opinion has already reached its verdict. She failed. The fans know it. The media knows it. And now, apparently, the federal government knows it too. Meanwhile, in the middle of all this chaos, Caitlin Clark's about to level up, richer, more famous, and more influential than ever. Because every story, every debate, every political headline, it's all centered around her. She's no longer just an athlete. She's a symbol. And symbols? They don't lose. Oh yeah, the WNBA commissioner's under fire. The civil rights probe is heating up, and Caitlin Clark just became the most powerful name in women's sports. Whether this ends in reform or a full-blown meltdown, one thing's for sure. The truth's coming out. Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button, and subscribe for more unfiltered updates right here.